welcome to another episode of whatever we're calling this podcast now. I am Dr. Daron Clark. I am a dentist who treats TMJ issues. And with us today, we have one of our wonderful patients who we were lucky enough to help him along on his journey in dealing with his TMJ issues. His name is Jason. Jason, thank you very much for being here today.
Of course.
So I'm going to just kind of run through some questions because people want to know what it's like to go through this experience. Obviously, there's a lot of people dealing with this and they want to get to good. So I'm going to ask you some questions to just help give them an idea of what your journey's been like. So we'll get started.
All right.
So first thing is pretty simple. Just kind of tell us about yourself. What do you do? What's your family like? Tell us about Jason.
Yeah, happy to. So Jason McConnell, I live out in Bellevue, which is West Nashville. And, newly married. We're coming up on our 3-year anniversary this September.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And, assuming this doesn't air for another couple weeks, I'll say my wife and I are expecting our first child.
Even more congratulations.
Yeah. Not sure if Ashton had told you that.
She did. Yes.
Okay, good. Due date, 3/7. We're having a little girl. Very excited.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Used to travel a lot for work. I got into consulting right out of college, traveled for 16 years until COVID hit. And then the travel stopped. All of a sudden I was, living and working in the same zip code.
Sure.
Which was fantastic. That was right at the same time I moved to Nashville. And, that's where I met my wife, got married, bought a house, the whole thing.
The life plan kicked into gear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Jason, I want to kind of just track through your journey with this, right? So before we met, before you came to see us, can you talk to us about what symptoms, what struggles were you dealing with relative to what was happening with your TMJ issues?
Yeah. So fortunately, I didn't start out with any TMJ issues, right? Had a whole childhood, most of an adulthood, everything was fine.
Yeah.
In 2018, I had an oral surgery, and during the recovery of that, I realized my jaw had started popping. So
Okay.
like from closed to open, there was always a pop, a click.
Yeah.
And it didn't bother me too much. There was no pain related to it. I didn't think much of it. Fast forward a couple of years, 2020, I started getting more serious at the gym, a lot of physical exertion, and it started getting worse.
Okay.
And, that went on for a couple of years. And really the impetus for, okay, I've tried all the other easy options. Like I need help, was when it got to the point where just at rest. So the at rest position, my jaw felt out of alignment. So just sleeping, sitting on the couch, walking around in a meeting. And I just felt like I had to massage that muscle all the time because I could tell it wasn't where it needed to be.
Out of balance all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it sounds like these things were like slowly creeping into affecting your work life, sounds like it was taking attention away from things that deserved it more than that.
It was. Yeah. I remember sitting in, annual meetings with my boss and my boss's boss. And, one of my most vivid memory, it was in Philly, and my most vivid memory of that whole meeting that year was being self-conscious because I knew I was always like this and they didn't necessarily know why. And, they thought it was, I talked to them after, they thought it was just a nervous tick. I'm like, no, it's pain.
Yeah. What treatments had you tried before you came to see us?
I had gone and talked to a couple of dentists, and I talked to my primary care physician.
Sure.
The first dentist said, "Oh, there's not too much pain. These things happen. Just kind of live with it."
Right.
The second dentist said, "Oh, I might be able to help." Made me a custom mouth guard. The custom mouth guard was interesting because it did help at rest. So overnight, like I could close my mouth in the guard, felt great. But the next morning, as soon as I took it off, my bite was completely misaligned. Like I couldn't close my mouth all the way.
Right.
And then there was horrible pain for about 30 minutes until I could close my mouth and chew, but then the popping was back. So I felt like that was regressing me, like going the wrong way.
You're sort of trading one thing for another to an extent.
And my doctor was like, well, maybe we could refer you to a surgeon, jaw surgery, and a quick Google of that. I'm like, okay, that seems like the most extreme option.
Right.
That's not where I want to jump to.
This is one of those situations where I encourage people to Google medical things.
Yeah.
Like, actually Google that surgery and make sure that that's something that you think you want to do.
Right.
Yeah. One of the things that we realized from talking to people who are dealing with these issues is relevant to the question that I asked earlier, like how this is affecting your life. Because what it does is for people who are in really severe pain, they wake up like it's the first thing that they think about in the morning. And you might have had a period of time where this was the case. And that is not what your brain needs to be putting energy towards, or your emotions need to be putting energy towards when you wake up in the morning. So then it turns into this cycle of like, it's always on your mind. And then it starts affecting how you interact with your friends and your family. It starts affecting your performance at work, which you just mentioned. And then it just sort of turns into this like a looming cloud that never goes away for a lot of people. So thank you for explaining how that worked for you. Before you started treatment with us, what hesitations or worries did you have?
I was worried that I wasn't going to find relief. I wasn't going to find a solution, and I would end up looking down the barrel of a jaw surgery.
Right.
I was, concerned about the commitment, the cost, how long it would take. Was it going to require braces for multiple years to align things? And I was probably most worried about what if I make that commitment? What if I go through that time and that cost and that effort and those braces or whatever was going to be required, and then didn't have a positive outcome at the end?
Yeah, didn't get the results you wanted.
Yeah.
Those are very, very common concerns. So relative to when you were in that mindset, was there anything that almost kept you from pursuing treatment or moving forward? And if there was, like, what finally got you to the decision?
Yeah. By the time I had gone through the second dentist and gotten the custom mouth guard, I think I was over the hurdle of I knew I needed to do something. There wasn't a path I saw where I left any stone unturned and just stayed the way things were, because it was getting worse. It wasn't stable. And then I think the custom mouth guard, because it had a regression effect, it made things worse. I think that jump started my effort. I'm like, okay, I'm no longer going to casually see a dentist every 6 to 12 months. I'm going to find a specialist that can help me.
Yeah. Okay. So after you were here, what stood out about our team and me and what we're doing here that made you feel confident and made you feel like this was the right place?
Yeah. So especially being able to compare you and your organization,
and the
you
team
had
context
here compared
Sure.
to some of the other dental and medical experiences I'd had. Everyone totally understood what I was dealing with. A lot of people had a background with it. Some of your staff were like, "Oh yeah, I went through this too when I was younger."
Yeah.
Or, when I was a young adult or a child, and they achieved relief, and that gave me a lot of confidence that okay, at least I'm not crazy. At least this isn't in my head.
Right. And you're not. There can be a sensation of loneliness with this when you're dealing with it, because it happens to a lot of people, but it's not like you've got 5 friends dealing with this, right? It doesn't usually come up in conversation. It's a difficult thing for other people who are not professionally working in this realm to understand what's happening. Frankly, it's a difficult thing for some physicians and other dentists to really understand what's happening, because we didn't necessarily get the training, and the system can be really complex. And I am so happy to hear you say that our team was interacting with you to be sympathetic and say, you know what, we've been through this. Like, we know what you're dealing with, because I know that adds a different comfort level in the decision that you made.
Yeah.
What stood out here relative to some of the other providers that you saw, in addition to what you've already mentioned?
Yeah. So in addition, I would call it two things. First, from the very beginning, we were able to paint a picture of what the next several phases of treatment would look like. Mm-hmm. So, okay, here's the outcome we want. Here are all the ways we could get there. And a lot of times it wasn't, we could do this or that. It was like, hey, we're going to do these 4 things, and that's going to give us the best chance for a positive outcome.
Yeah.
And the other, and I didn't learn this until kind of further on once we'd started the treatment, but just some of the amazing technology that that we utilized in treatment. I'll never forget having the sensors in the mouth and being able to look at the screen. And, you know, as I bit down, I would see all the hot spots for the entire bite.
Yeah. And it correlated with what you were feeling that might otherwise be difficult to articulate.
Very much.
And from our end, be very difficult for us to identify. Yeah, that technology has been such an asset for us, and obviously like for our patients, because we can get so much better outcomes when we can objectively see what's happening in a clear way. Next question is, what surprised you most about the process once you started?
Yeah, great question. Probably a couple things. One would have been some of the it actually gets worse before it gets better moments. So as we transition from like one guard to another, or we transition from one phase to another, and I'm feeling pretty good. I'm like, okay, we've seen a lot of progress. And then, you know, just the nature of, you know, materials science, we make something and it's off by a few microns. And I come back in, you know, a week or two later, I'm like, it hurts again, or it's popping again. And we make an adjustment, and then we're right back on track.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think I expected the 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I thought it was all going to be, you know, linear.
Yeah. I wish that were not the case, but it's like, for many people, it's kind of just part of the process. And if you think about it in the context of, you have an orthopedic and neurologic system that's out of balance, and it gets used every day. The field goal posts for getting things right can be very small for a lot of people. And when one little thing gets off, then it can get you outside of that. But the great part of it is we know how to identify that. We know to expect it, and we know how to get you back to good. How did the team here help you feel supported along the way? Other than, you know, obviously you mentioned earlier they were sharing their own experiences.
Yeah. Well, everybody was incredibly responsive the whole time. So that single text thread where everybody checks in and sees my updates and sees my questions. And if someone sees my question, but they're not the right person to answer it, they'll make sure, hey, I'm going to go talk to, you know, Ashton, or I'm going to go talk to, you know, so-and-so, and I'm going to get that answer for you.
Yeah.
And they did. There was a lot of follow-up. I know there's a lot of touch points in person during the treatment plan, but there was also, it felt like just constant communication as needed virtually as well.
Well, that makes me feel good, because we have put a boatload of work into making sure that that's the case. And in addition to that, and I think you know this already, like, we have a meeting once a week when you're not here, and everybody who's in treatment, we review what's happening. We review where they are. We review what's going on and what our goals are with it. And it's really nice to hear from your end that you can sense that there is that level of attention given to it.
I actually heard about that meeting, and you know, I felt like I was part of the holistic team, because you know, they're like, oh, here's what we talked about in the last meeting. I'm like, oh, that's great.
Yeah, and that's why your input in those appointments is so important, because then we can discuss it as a group and make sure that we are covering all of our bases and moving in the right direction. So Jason, what was it like using all of the different therapies at once. And you kind of touched on this earlier when you're like, okay, it wasn't like, let's try this, then maybe let's try this. It was like, we're going to do these things kind of all at the same time. And this is the best way to get you to good. So from your perspective, what was that like?
Yeah. Well, as we built the treatment plan, and I saw the different therapies, especially the myofunctional therapy, I'm like, oh, that'll be good. But it looked on paper like an add-on. Like, hey, I'm doing the real treatment, which is going to help adjust my bite and my jaw position. And then I'm going to do some stretches. But I was really surprised how the holistic treatment seemed intertwined. So I love the myofunctional therapy. Mm-hmm. I wish I'd found it earlier.
It's essential to success.
Mm-hmm. But it absolutely impacted, like I could tell the different myofunctional therapy exercises I would get every week or every 2 weeks would, several of the pieces would be related to what we were doing with the jaw position or with the guards or with the different orthotic pieces. Yeah,
very good. So we're going to transition to after treatment. How has life been different relative to when you started?
Yeah. Certainly you mentioned how when you're suffering from TMJ, especially a constant sort of TMJ, it can take up a lot of time and energy. And I'm happy to report that it takes up a lot less time and energy.
Wonderful.
So I still think, okay, put my guard in every night. Or if I lay down and I've forgotten, I'm like, oh, nope, got to go get that guard. But, especially at the gym, which is where it was bothering me before, like mentally, because I was worried about the exertion, or, late at night, because that was when it was worse because of the fatigue. Mm-hmm. I'm able to, focus on relaxing, being with my wife, taking a walk with the dogs. And I still notice, and they say you will always take your health for granted when you're healthy. That's probably true to some extent, but I do still notice during the day, I'm like, hey, I'm not having to rub that muscle in my jaw today. And that's great.
Yeah. It's not on my mind.
Now I do think about myofunctional therapy constantly.
We want you to do that,
but in a good way.
Yeah.
I'll do monkey face and bulldog, several times a day for the rest of my life, I think.
It's the data on the myofunctional therapy shows that, like, what we want you to do is we want you doing it and giving it attention for at least a year after we finish, because that's what it really takes to, over the long term, cement it as just the normal habit and the normal posture. So I'm glad to hear that you're still thinking about it and doing it. How has your treatment and going through this journey impacted your overall health and your confidence and your quality of life? And you've touched on this a little bit, but answer that directly if you can.
Yeah. Overall health, I would say I was pretty good at flossing before, but I'd never had a water pick, and I had to get a water pick during some of the orthotic treatment phases. So now I have another weapon in my repertoire. Definitely, once you've invested this much time and effort and everything into the mouth, I found that you'll be more diligent in all of the dental hygiene.
Yes.
Quality of life, certainly, less time and energy and focus on that. It's almost like, getting over, a depression bout. That's no longer a consideration. So you have time and energy for other things.
Yeah. One of my goals for patients is we've talked about this, but I want you, when you're done, I don't want you to think about it. I don't want it to find its way to the front of your mind. So I'm happy to hear that that's where you are. So you mentioned earlier, you and your wife have a big life change coming up with the impending arrival of your daughter. And congratulations.
Thank you.
And as a recent father, I'll ask you this question with context. Like, what is it like looking forward to that, knowing that this last difficult phase is behind you before this happens?
Yeah. Well, I'm really grateful that I got it done before that big life change.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like I said, especially after the first couple of attempts at fixing the issue, I knew it wasn't something I wanted to live with long term. If I could find a way through it, I was going to. And it is a commitment. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy and effort. And I'm just grateful that I got that done. And now that's not going to detract from being a father and sticking with all of the other commitments that I'm sure are on their way.
Many more on the way, but it's going to you're going to get the full experience, right? Without the distraction of what you were dealing with.
Yeah.
Yeah. We couldn't be happier for you.
And if I have their tongue tie released, I can empathize with them because I've been through that now.
Yeah. You're going to know what to look for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. So if Jason, if you met a friend or if you had a family member who was suffering from the same issues, what advice would you give them?
Yeah. I actually have some friends that are also suffer from TMJ. And I tell them my whole experience just so they, I think you can learn a lot by going through it yourself, but it's so much easier if you can take some advice from somebody that's been through it before.
Who's been through it before. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So I tell them, hey, here are the things I've tried. Here's what worked a little bit. Here's what didn't work at all. Mm-hmm. I'll reemphasize for them that they're not crazy. I get it. It's not just in their head.
They need to hear that.
Maybe technically it is, but it's also not.
Literally it is. What would you say to someone who might be watching this, who's on the fence about pursuing treatment?
Yeah. Well, I would ask them to, consider how bad is it? How is it impacting them? How long has it been that way? Has it gotten worse over time?
Yeah.
Has it gotten better? And I don't think that one's likely, but it's possible. And I understand that it's a commitment in a lot of different ways, but if your team, whoever they're working with, hopefully here, if the team thinks there's going to be a positive outcome, and they'll be realistic with you about what that positive outcome looks like, because sometimes it's complete relief, sometimes it's partial. It certainly can be worth it. Yeah. And it's lasting.
It was interesting to me earlier when you sort of framed it as there's a lot of energy and effort put into going through the treatment process, but it's better that you're putting your energy and effort into that solution rather than putting your energy and effort into trying to survive dealing with it, right? Without a solution in mind or on the horizon. How has this experience changed the way you think about dentistry overall?
Well, it opened up some new avenues that I didn't even know dentistry covered.
Yeah, sure.
So some of the dentistry specializations, you might call it. So I think everybody knows, hey, you go in for your cleanings. And, heaven forbid, if there's an issue, you can get a filling or, something more substantial. But there's also this, right? Which is, it's an interesting line between, what is health versus what is dental health, right? This is a muscular issue. It's joint, it's soft tissue. But it's also something that, if you need that specialist treatment, it's a dentist that you seek out.
Yeah, we don't, just the culture of medicine, we don't often associate dentistry with medicine, but as it turns out, all of these teeth are connected to the rest of your body and they work very closely together. So Jason, I want to step back and really just kind of focus on the specifics of your case and what you were dealing with. So if you can, just tell us the constellation of things and symptoms that were associated with what you were dealing with before we started treatment.
Sure. There was clicking and popping, especially from the closed position to the open position.
Yeah.
On one side. Very occasionally, it would get stuck and it would be difficult to open the mouth.
Right.
And a lot of soreness in the joint and the muscle. It seemed to get worse throughout the day. Oddly enough, I could always chew without the clicking or popping, and I'm still not sure why. But yeah, the at-rest position, which is where you spend most of your day, was uncomfortable and getting more uncomfortable.
Yeah. And this started with, the symptoms started with an oral surgery experience. And there was an injury to the joint that happened. And then when there's an injury to the joint, you're going to get an inflammation process in there. And an inflamed joint, whether it's your knee or your elbow, we're all kind of wired for the muscles around it to brace it, which means you get some muscle contraction there. And that's great if it's your ankle and you can stay off of it and let it heal. It's not great when it's your jaw and you don't get to stop using it, right? So then your muscles started getting recruited into what was going on, trying to protect the joint. And then they get tired and they get worn out. And then one side is tighter than the other. So you kind of feel like your jaw is off center eventually. And your tendency to put your hand there and just kind of press was a relieving treatment for that muscle tension and tenderness that you were having. So it all sort of like one thing just leads to another. And the goal is to get things back in balance, get the inflammation out of the joint by getting it in a position where it can function normally. And you know all of these things now, but the reason the joint was popping is because the disc was not in a position between the bones where it should have been. And in those moments where you got stuck, the inflammation was so profound in there that you couldn't actually get back on the disc when you would open or close. And that is a very alarming sensation, especially the first time that it happens, that you can't get your jaw open. And I think I remember you showing us what you had to do to get past it when it happened. And we do see that with a lot of patients when they get into that locked position. They can kind of maneuver out of it, but it's very difficult. It's very uncomfortable, and it's a worrisome thing to deal with just on an emotional level.
Yeah.
So Jason, in your words and from your experience and your terms, just share with the audience what we did and how it helped.
Yeah. Well, we talked a little about the myofunctional therapy, which I'm a big proponent of now. And keep me honest here on the timeline. I know for the ultimate outcome, we wanted to change the way the teeth came together. So change that at-rest position for the jaw. So we started with a bottom-only orthotic. So basically a topper for the bottom teeth that, we measured and scanned, and, I came in and we put electrodes on the jaw, and it was kind of like a spa day where we just brought the muscle completely at rest.
As much as we could, yeah.
And then we determined, okay, what should this at-rest position look like? And then we built the orthotic, and then, it didn't feel slowly at the time because I was coming in every week.
Sure.
But relatively slowly, we would whittle down that orthotic and change the position and just bring that more into alignment so that the at-rest position became, less troublesome, more natural, allowed the jaw to start healing.
Yeah. And that's the key, is we've got to create a situation where the joint can heal itself. And it will if we give it an opportunity by not allowing that re-injury to happen every time you're closing down. So Jason, in your case, and we've talked about the myofunctional therapy a couple times today, what we were really doing is you spent so much time with that muscle out of balance and out of function, right? It was part of why it was hurting. Like the whole system, the jaw was shifted over to one side, the whole system was out of balance. And the myofunctional therapy is so important because These muscles have engrams and muscle memory, just like your biceps and your hamstrings and everything else. And they learn to do different things that we habitually do. So the myofunctional therapy component of it was to retrain those muscles to go back and start functioning in that more balanced position. And that is another piece of what allowed the joint to calm down. It is another piece of it's this big piece of like retraining you back into this balanced functional position that you had before all of this started. And it's really, especially in your case, just essential to the success. And your experience in doing the exercises tells us that as well, right? Because you could tell a difference when you were doing them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Certain exercises that I still do daily, especially when I first started, it just felt good. It felt like I was stretching a muscle that hadn't been stretched in a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jason, we can't thank you enough for being here. And because it is so important for other people who don't have context for how this works and what's going on and what their options are to hear from people who've been through it. You spoke to that earlier when you were talking about our team members who have been through this process and how reassuring it was for you when you were here doing it to hear them say it. So I thank you, the team thanks you, and the people who are watching the podcast and looking for some help and some understanding, I'm sure they're appreciative as well. Congratulations on the upcoming arrival of your daughter. We couldn't be happier for you, and I'm very grateful that you took your time and came in today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.